They set up the poor single mom as a joke on a blind date with a lonely CEO. What she did changed his life forever. At a corner table of a downtown cafe, a group of coworkers huddled over half-empty coffee cups and lowered voices. Their laughter was muffled, their expressions tight with amusement, and something meaner underneath. One leaned in, smirking. If he's really as good as they say, let's drop him in an uncomfortable situation. We film how he reacts, then post it with the caption, CEO mocks poor single mom on blind date. That polished image of his? Gone. The others laughed. They didn't need to say his name. Everyone at the company knew who they meant. Nolan Walker, the young CEO with a golden reputation. Smart, charitable, too perfect. That evening, using a fake account on a dating app, they invited a woman to meet him. Not at a random place. At the cafe Nolan often stopped by after work. Always alone, always on schedule. They knew exactly where he'd be. They just needed someone who looked out of place. Across the city, Eliza pressed a damp washcloth to her daughter's forehead. It was nearly 4 p.m. The apartment was small, clean, and dimly lit by late sunlight. Her 5-year-old, Ava, sat cross-legged at the table eating macaroni in her favorite pink bowl, while Eliza hunched nearby, laptop open, editing a draft of her latest illustration for a children's book. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lainey, her closest friend and coworker at the cafe. Lainey, new dating app. Just for fun. I made you a profile. Someone messaged already. He said he just wants a quiet, no-pressure conversation. It's BS. Eliza sighed and tapped the link. She was about to delete the app when the message caught her eye. The profile showed no picture. Just a name. N.W. and a short, simple line. If you don't mind a quiet evening, talking to someone who forgot how to date, I'd like that. Something about it made her pause. Ava tugged at her sleeve. Mommy, wear your pink dress, okay? Eliza smiled and touched the fraying collar of her old pastel dress still hanging on the back of the door. You think he'll like that? No, Ava said with a giggle. I do. By 5:30, Eliza had pulled her hair back into a neat ponytail, slipped into the pink dress, and layered it with a worn cream sweater. Her shoes, slightly peeling at the soles, had been glued twice, but they still worked. She kissed Ava's forehead and reminded her to listen to Auntie Lainey while she was gone. At 5:45, she pushed open the cafe door. The warm glow of hanging lights reflected off the wooden tables. A light jazz melody played beneath the quiet murmur of early evening conversations. She spotted him immediately. A young man in a navy shirt, sleeves casually rolled, sat alone by the window, nursing a coffee. He was handsome in a quiet way, but what struck her most was how still he seemed. Calm, present. She walked toward him, with careful steps. Hi, she said gently. I'm your date for tonight, I think. Nolan looked up. His brow furrowed, not in annoyance, but in confusion. For a moment, he just studied her. Behind them, near the back wall, a phone camera silently recorded. The pranksters leaned forward, eyes gleaming, waiting for the fallout. Nolan looked up at the woman standing before him. Her dress was modest, the color soft like a faded flower. She stood there with a nervous smile, and something in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or uncertainty. I'm your date, she said, voice gentle. From the app, there was a beat of silence. Nolan didn't move at first. He hadn't used any dating apps. He hadn't planned on meeting anyone. And yet, here she was. He rose slightly, polite, still processing. Please, have a seat. Relieved, Eliza slid into the chair across from him, folding her hands tightly in her lap. Thank you, she said quietly. They exchanged a few surface-level pleasantries, names, weather, coffee orders. Nolan smiled, made space for conversation, even as a strange unease began stirring beneath his calm demeanor. Then Eliza said, I almost didn't reply to your message. but it was kind and honest. A quiet evening. No pressure. I liked that. Nolan blinked. I'm sorry, he said slowly. What message? Eliza tilted her head slightly. From the app? You said you hadn't dated in a while, that you just wanted a normal conversation. Nolan's brow furrowed. I don't use dating apps. I didn't send any message, and I didn't arrange a date tonight. Silence filled the space between them. Eliza's breath caught in her throat. You didn't? He shook his head, still calm but clearly confused. No. I'm not sure what happened. But if you came here expecting a conversation, I'd still like to offer one. No pressure. No expectations. She hesitated, blinking away the rising embarrassment. But something in his voice, gentle, steady, calmed her. Okay, she murmured. She had no idea what was coming. As they talked, Nolan lifted his coffee, eyes drifting across the cafe. It was habit more than anything. He always observed his surroundings. That's when he saw them. In the back corner, 3 colleagues from work, faces half-shadowed by hanging lights. Their attention locked on him. One held a phone slightly raised, angled just enough to record. Nolan's expression didn't shift. But inside, something went cold. He understood now. They had set this up, but not just to catch him off guard, to humiliate the woman sitting across from him. He looked back at her. She was sipping her coffee slowly, still trying to hide how tense she was. Do you ever get a feeling someone's watching you? He asked gently. Eliza looked up, startled. What? I think someone may be testing us. She turned slightly in her seat, following his gaze. Her smile faded. Her face paled. She saw the phone, the way the people at the back averted their eyes too late. Her stomach turned. Oh no, she whispered. No, no. She pressed her fingers against her mouth. Don't tell me I'm... The joke. Nolan's voice was soft, but firm. They thought I'd judge you. Be cruel. They wanted to catch it on camera, but they didn't count on one thing. She looked at him, eyes wide, wounded. What? They picked the wrong man. Tears welled up in her eyes. She stood suddenly. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I would never have come if I'd known. You didn't do anything wrong. But she was already heading toward the door. Humiliated. Nolan stood immediately, grabbed his coat, and followed her outside. Dusk had fallen. The street was quiet, golden light spilling from cafe windows. Eliza, he called. She stopped on the sidewalk but didn't turn. They brought me here to watch me treat you like less. Like you didn't belong. Her shoulders shook. I'm a single mom, she said, not looking at him. I wore my best dress. I left my daughter at home hoping this might, I don't know, just something kind, something human. Nolan stepped beside her. They wanted me to act like I was better than you, he said quietly. But they forgot. Kindness doesn't need proof, and it sure doesn't need an audience. He slipped off his coat and gently placed it over her shoulders. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, barely above a whisper, why are you being nice to me? Because that's who I am. They stood in silence, the sounds of the street soft around them. Would you, he said, would you come back in? Not for them, for me. I'd really like to know you. Her eyes searched his. Then, slowly, she nodded. Inside again, the noise of the cafe faded as they sat. Nolan ordered her another coffee. She told him about Ava, her daughter who loved drawing and the color pink, about her work as a freelance illustrator, barely scraping by. Her voice trembled at first, but as Nolan listened, really listened, her words grew steadier. He told her about his mother, how she raised him alone, how kindness was her legacy. I've built something, he said. But what's the point of it if I can't connect with someone who's real? Their conversation grew warmer, deeper. Later, when Eliza excused herself to the restroom, Nolan stood and walked to the back corner. The 3 were still there, sheepish now, silent. He didn't raise his voice. "You needed to humiliate a stranger to test me," he said. "That tells me everything about you. And nothing about her." One of them muttered, "Why aren't you angry?" Nolan didn't blink. "Because you don't matter enough to make me forget who I am." When Eliza returned, Nolan was back at the table. She sat down, her eyes curious. "What happened?" "Nothing important," he replied. She smiled. This time, without fear. "This isn't how I imagined tonight would go," she said. Nolan looked at her, eyes warm. "Me neither, but I'm glad it did, and for the first time in years." He meant it. The morning was already racing ahead of Eliza. She barely had enough time to drop Ava off at daycare before rushing down the street, her scarf trailing behind her like a loose ribbon. Tucked tightly under her arm was a worn folder, corners bent, edges soft from too much handling. Inside it, a dream, her first illustrated book proposal. She was heading to a small bookstore squeezed between a florist and a bakery, one of the few places that hadn't dismissed her emails. Her fingers were still faintly stained with ink from working late into the night. She wasn't technically late, but her heart pounded as if she were. Everything felt high stakes lately. The moment she pushed open the bookstore door, the small bell above jingled brightly. And then she collided into someone. A warm coat, a steady pair of hands caught her by the shoulders before either of them stumbled. She looked up, startled. "I'm so sore," she began, then stopped. It was Nolan, equally surprised. He blinked. "Eliza?" For a second, time paused. Just the two of them standing there, caught in a moment neither expected. "I didn't think I'd see you again," she said quietly. "I hoped I would," he replied, almost sheepishly. Honestly, her cheeks flushed, not just from the cold. He stepped back, giving her space, as she adjusted the folder against her chest. "You all right?" he asked. "Yeah, just one of those mornings." He glanced toward the folder. "Work?" "Sort of," she said. "It's a picture book I've been illustrating. My first real attempt. I'm meeting the owner here, hoping he'll give it a look." Interest flickered in his eyes. "You're an illustrator?" She nodded. "And writer. But it's a personal story, based on Ava. Actually, it's called Through the Eyes of a Girl with No Dad." Nolan's expression shifted, still sincere. "That's a brave title." Eliza shrugged. "It's a little raw, but it's honest. I'd really like to see it someday," he said. A pause hung between them. She smiled faintly, but said nothing. Just then, the shop owner waved her over from the back. "I should head in," she said, tightening her grip on the folder. "Thanks for the rescue." "Any time," he said with a small grin. She moved toward the counter. In her rush, she set down a slim paperback, Ava and the Moon, a sweet story she'd meant to buy for Ava. But in the flurry of nerves and shifting her portfolio, she forgot about it. Nolan didn't. As she disappeared behind a curtain into the office, he stepped forward, picked up the book, and handed it to the cashier. "Add this, please." No receipt needed. 10 minutes later, Eliza returned, her face unreadable. "How'd it go?" Nolan asked, as she stepped out. "He said he'll think about it," she replied. "Which, in this business, means more than nothing. You deserve more than a maybe." She chuckled softly. "Maybe's better than a no." They stood just outside the shop. The bakery next door sent out the faint scent of cinnamon. Somewhere, a child laughed. Nolan looked at her. "Would you mind if one day I saw the rest of it? Your book, I mean. Or maybe just had another coffee. No hidden cameras this time, I promise." Eliza hesitated. She looked down at her boots, one sole peeling again, and smiled. "Okay. But it's not a date." "Noted," he said, hand raised like a scout's pledge. "Just coffee. Strictly unofficial." "Maybe," she replied, her voice warmer now. Nolan stepped back slowly. "Well, I'll let you get to your day. You too. She watched him walk away, tall and calm, then turned to head back inside. That's when the cashier called after her. Miss? The man who just left. He paid for this. She looked at the book in the cashier's hand. Ava and the Moon. She took it gently, eyes widening. No note, no name. Just kindness. Simple. Quiet. The kind that doesn't ask to be seen. She stepped back outside into the cold air, hugged the book to her chest, and smiled. Suddenly, the morning didn't feel rushed anymore. The rain came without warning. By the time Eliza reached the daycare, heavy drops were already pounding the sidewalk. Ava ran into her arms, her pink jacket soaked, curls sticking to her forehead. Mommy, my shoes are squishy, Ava mumbled. Eliza forced a smile, brushing wet strands from her daughter's face. We're racing the rain home, remember? By the time they reached their apartment, both were drenched. Eliza's umbrella had flipped inside out halfway down the block. Ava's backpack was dripping. Inside, the power flickered. Then, darkness. A note taped to the building's entry had warned of a scheduled outage. The nearby shop was closed early. Eliza sighed, staring at the puddles outside the window. I thought we were getting cake, Ava whispered. Eliza crouched beside her. We are, she said, pulling out her sketch pad. What flavor should it be? Ava perked up. Strawberry, with pink icing. Eliza started to draw. A cake took shape. 3 tiers, candles glowing. They sat on the floor. Ava giggled, pretending to take big bites. So yummy. Eliza smiled, but inside she felt hollow. No mother wanted to swap sweetness for sketches. The next morning, Eliza opened the door and stopped. Hanging from the knob was a white box. A note was taped to it in simple block letters. This one is real. Mom kept her promise. Inside was a small strawberry cake with pink icing. Next to it, wrapped in brown paper, was a copy of Moonlight Friends, Ava's favorite book, the one Eliza hadn't been able to afford. Her breath caught. No name, no message, just the gift. But she knew. She pressed a hand to her mouth and stood there, overwhelmed. That afternoon, the clouds cleared. Eliza took Ava to the park. The grass was wet, golden leaves spinning down from trees. Ava darted ahead, then squealed. Puppy! Eliza looked up. Nolan stood at the edge of the path, holding a leash. A shaggy dog wagged its tail wildly. Their eyes met. Twice in 1 week, he said, smiling. That must mean something. Ava knelt to pet the dog, giggling. Eliza tightened her scarf, suddenly shy. She loves animals. I can tell, Nolan said. Then gently, did the cake help? She gave a small laugh. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, he said. Strawberry and pink icing seemed important. It was, she admitted. It saved the night. He was quiet for a moment. My mom used to do that too. She never had much, but she always found a way to fix bad days. Once, she cut a sandwich into 4 and called it magic bread. I believed her. Eliza blinked, a warmth spreading through her. Maybe their lives weren't so different after all. Ava played nearby. Nolan knelt beside her, teaching her a leaf-matching game. She shrieked with laughter. Eliza stood back, watching. Here was a man in designer clothes, sitting cross-legged on wet grass, making goofy sounds to make a little girl laugh. He wasn't putting on a show. He was just kind. And for the first time, Eliza let herself wonder, what if this was real? As the sun dipped low, Ava tugged Nolan's sleeve. Will you come to our house one day? Nolan smiled. If your mom says okay. Eliza flushed, then nodded. I'll think about it. He stood and turned to her. Eliza, he said softly, I'm not doing any of this out of pity. I'm doing it because I like you. No big speech, no drama, just honesty. And in the quiet that followed, something shifted. Small, steady, real. The afternoon sun filtered through the cafe, where Eliza worked part-time. Behind the counter, the hum of milk steamers and soft chatter filled the air. At a corner table, Eliza sat hunched over her sketch pad. Ava, next to her, colored with a pack of crayons, tongue poking out in focus. Nolan stepped inside, not expecting to see them. Eliza looked up, surprised, then smiled. Hi, he returned. His eyes caught the drawing she was finishing. A mother and daughter reading together on a windowsill. Gentle, real. You really can draw, he said, clearly impressed. Eliza laughed lightly. Mostly freelance work, children's books. Some gigs pay $20, if I'm lucky. Nolan looked at her for a long moment. She was doing so much with so little. He sat down. My company's supporting a community program, Creative Bloom. They run art workshops for underserved kids. They're looking for illustrators and workshop leaders. He paused. I'm not trying to interfere, but if you're interested, I could pass your name to the program director. From there, it's up to you. Eliza blinked. Not a favor. Not pity. Just an open door. Why me? She asked. Because I think kids need someone like you. That night, as she walked home, her thoughts spun. What if people think I'm using him? What if I fail? But when she reached her door, there was an envelope tucked underneath. Inside, invitation to trial workshop, Creative Bloom program. Dear Eliza Hart, we invite you to lead a guest session this Saturday. No Nolan, no signature, just a real offer. Saturday morning came quickly. The community center classroom was already buzzing when Eliza and Ava arrived. 15 children, wide-eyed, full of energy. Some wore coats too big or shoes too old. Eliza's hands trembled slightly. Ava squeezed her hand. You can do it, Mommy. Eliza smiled, found her breath. Today, she said, we're going to draw something special. Your dream home. Any shape, any color. The room exploded with excitement. Paint flew. Kids giggled. Colors covered everything. Eliza moved between them with ease, helping mix colors, wiping noses, laughing at wild ideas like a house for friendly aliens. At the back, unnoticed at first, Nolan stood watching. She wasn't guarded, not cautious, just alive. When the session ended, the children swarmed to show their drawings. Ava darted to Nolan, handing him a picture. Stick figures under a bright blue sky. At the bottom, Mr. Nolan, the man who makes Mommy smile. Nolan stared at it, quiet. Later, while Eliza cleaned up, the program director approached. We'd like to offer you a 6-month contract. It's not high-paying, but steady. Nolan referred you, but the decision was about your work. You have something rare. Eliza's throat tightened. Thank you. Ava hugged her leg, squealing. Mommy got a job. Across the room, Nolan met Eliza's eyes. She looked back, not as someone out of place in his world, but as a woman finally standing tall, and maybe, just maybe, ready to step into something more. By the third weekend workshop, Eliza had found her rhythm. Kids bounced in excitedly, parents offered warm nods, and Ava proudly helped arrange the brushes. That morning, a new student arrived, a girl in a flawless lavender dress and shiny patent shoes. Abigail, 6, held her head high as she entered, followed by her elegantly dressed mother. Eliza smiled. Hi there. You must be Abigail. Welcome. Abigail glanced around. I don't like getting paint on me. Eliza knelt beside her. That's okay. We'll be careful. But sometimes, art gets a little messy. That's part of the fun. Midway through class, a small accident sent chaos rippling through the room. Abigail leaned too far over her station. A jar of purple ink tipped over, splashing across her expensive dress. She shrieked, My dress! It's ruined. I hate this place. Eliza hurried over. It's okay, sweetheart. We'll fix it. Accidents happen. She gently dabbed at the stain. Just then, the door opened. Abigail's mother, Lorraine, entered. She froze when she saw the ink and Abigail's expression. Her gaze moved sharply to Eliza. Faded jeans, worn cardigan, ink-stained fingers. "This is the teacher?" she asked, more to the room than to Eliza. "It was just a spill," Eliza said, standing up. Lorraine didn't let her finish. "This is unacceptable. You let children ruin their clothes and call it education? It wasn't her fault." Eliza tried again. Abigail knocked it over. "Don't make excuses. I know you're kind. Single mom, no credentials, barely scraping by. And I'm supposed to trust you with my daughter?" Parents nearby started to glance over. Eliza stiffened. Behind her, Ava clutched her sleeve silently. Then Lorraine added, her voice like ice. "I've also heard about your connection to Nolan Weston. Is that how you got this job? Hoping to sleep your way up?" Eliza's chest tightened. Words caught in her throat. And then, from the back, a voice. Nolan had just walked in. He'd heard everything. His expression darkened. He stepped forward, but Eliza gently raised a hand without turning. "Don't," she whispered. "Let me." She turned to Abigail first, kneeling. "You don't need to worry about your dress," she said softly. "Real artists make messes. That's how we know we're learning." Abigail blinked. Surprised, Eliza stood, facing Lorraine directly. "I took this job because I care. I love art. I love teaching. And no one gave this job to me. I worked hard for it." She paused. Her voice didn't waver. "Your daughter spilled the ink. I was there to help. Just like I'm here to help every child, no matter what their parents wear or believe about me." The room went silent. Then a small boy ran up and hugged her. "You're the best art teacher ever." Other kids nodded. A parent near the back added, "We're lucky to have her." Lorraine flushed. She yanked Abigail's hand and stormed out without a word. Nolan walked over. He didn't say anything, just stood beside Eliza as they helped clean the tables. Eventually, the room emptied. Only the three of them remained. Outside, the light had turned gold. The autumn air was cool and quiet. As they stepped out, Nolan finally broke the silence. "I've met a lot of strong people," he said. "But you're different." Eliza looked down at Ava's small hand gripping hers. "I just didn't want her to see me back down." "You didn't," Nolan said. "You stood your ground, with grace." She looked up at him then. "No more walls. No need to explain." For the first time, Eliza didn't feel like someone fighting to belong. She just felt seen, and not alone anymore. It started with a headline. The video, uploaded anonymously, was spreading fast. First, Lorraine's voice, sharp and clear. "You think just because you know the CEO, you can do whatever you want?" Then, a quick cut to Eliza and Nolan, side by side as the creative Bloom director handed Eliza a contract. The caption beneath it screamed, "Single mom climbs the ladder using CEO connection." From art teacher to opportunist, the comments were swift and brutal. Typical gold digger. She definitely slept her way in. Single moms with a sob story always have an angle. Eliza had no idea until Ava said softly after school, "Mom, some kids said you're on the internet and that people think you're bad." Eliza's stomach dropped. She opened her laptop with shaking hands. The video was everywhere. She couldn't finish it. One comment echoed in her mind, pretending to be sweet. Look at her eyes, fake. She cried, not for herself, but for Ava. That night, she sent a short email to the Creative Bloom coordinator. "Out of respect for your program, I am stepping down. Thank you for the opportunity." No explanation, just a quiet goodbye. That same night, Nolan was called into an emergency board meeting. Inside the glass conference room, the questions came cold and fast. When did you meet her? Did you authorize her hiring? Is this affecting public trust in your leadership? One advisor leaned forward. "Nolan, you've worked for years to build your name. Don't lose it over a personal mistake. He said nothing, not in anger, just the quiet pain of watching something good be distorted. Eliza didn't pick up when he called. He left just one message. I don't believe you need to disappear. Please, just meet me once. She didn't go. Her thoughts looped. He shouldn't have to clean up after me. Not now. Not ever. But life doesn't wait for pain to settle before dealing another blow. 2 days later, gray skies, heavy rain. Eliza arrived at school. Ava was missing. Not in the classroom. Not on the playground. Her backpack still hanging. Her coat untouched. A teacher said. She was upset earlier. Kids were teasing her about her dad being made up. Eliza didn't wait. She ran. Called friends. Checked parks. Nothing. 2 hours passed. She was soaked. Breathless. Frantic. Nolan was passing by Eliza's old neighborhood when he spotted a small figure under the awning of a closed laundromat. Ava, knees tucked to her chest, soaked, clutching her stuffed rabbit. He knelt beside her. Your mom's looking everywhere. She looked up, eyes red. If I disappear, will people stop saying bad things about Mommy? Nolan's heart cracked. He picked her up, holding her close. No one has the right to say those things. Ever. He brought her straight home. When Eliza opened the door and saw Nolan, dripping, holding Ava asleep in his arms, she froze. They laid Ava gently on the couch. Eliza whispered, voice raw. I didn't want you dragged into this. Nolan shook his head. You didn't drag me. He stepped closer. I chose to walk into this with you. Silence settled. Not the silence of goodbye, but of something deeper, firmer. Not pity, not romance, but the start of something unbreakable. That night, Eliza and Nolan sat at the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. Ava was asleep in the next room, curled up with her stuffed rabbit. Rain tapped gently against the window. The only light came from the old lamp above the sink. Eliza finally broke the silence. I'm sorry, she said, for dragging you into this. I should have handled it better. Nolan shook his head slowly. Eliza, he said softly, you think people hated you because you were poor. But they didn't. He looked at her with calm intensity. They hated you because you never begged. You never bowed. And still, you were good. Her breath caught. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. There was sadness in the air, but not the kind that overwhelms. It was the kind that mends. I'm tired, she said. Me too, he said. Then came the words that changed everything. They want me to choose, Nolan said. Keep the perfect image, or choose you. Eliza's lips parted. Startled, he continued. I choose you. And if I have to rebuild everything I've worked for, then fine. I'll rebuild. With you. And Ava. Her eyes welled with tears. She shook her head, smiling through them. You're insane, she whispered. For you? He smiled back. Absolutely. A week later, Eliza returned to the art center. After the original video was proven to be a malicious fake and taken down, the program invited her back, publicly and without apology. What she didn't expect, though, was for Nolan to show up early, with a paintbrush. He stood awkwardly in front of a room full of wide-eyed children, gripping the brush like it was a sword. I haven't drawn anything since middle school, he admitted. And I wasn't good then either. In fact, mine is a grad. The kids burst out laughing as Nolan tried to draw a cat and produce something that looked more like a potato. Eliza leaned against the wall, arms crossed, grinning. He wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to impress. He was simply showing up. And that, she realized, was the most sincere thing anyone had ever done for her. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when they found themselves walking through the park, just the three of them. Ava twirled in her pink dress, catching falling leaves in her hands. Eliza wore her old cream cardigan. Nolan's coat was too big, as always, and Ava kept grabbing his sleeve. They passed a woman pushing a stroller, who smiled and said, What a sweet little family you've got there. Eliza flushed. Nolan smiled, looked at Eliza, then back at the woman. Thanks, he said. We may be small, but we're enough. Later that evening, Eliza found a folded piece of paper on the table. Ava's handwriting, crayon drawings, 3 stick figures, 1 tall man, 1 woman with yellow hair, and a little girl holding both their hands. Above them, it read, Me, Mommy, Nolan. We weren't a family from the beginning, but we don't have to leave each other anymore. Eliza pressed the paper to her chest, eyes glistening. She walked out to the living room. Nolan and Ava were sitting cross-legged on the carpet, coloring in silence. There were leaves in Ava's hair. Nolan had marker on his cheek. The lamp above them glowed like late summer sun. Eliza sat down beside them. Nolan looked at her. She didn't say anything. She just reached for his hand. I used to think the world only respected what was flawless. That perfection was the only thing worth building. But then I met Eliza and Ava, and they taught me that sometimes it's the patchwork, the crooked edges,